Hello and welcome to a new episode of Improvisations on Growth with Madhu Seidler. My name is Adina Arhire and I'm excited to present to you the third and last part of the series that dives into the topic of being professional. Are we so focused on our careers and on being professionals that we forgot how to be humans? Do we see professionalism as an abstract notion depleted of any sense of emotion or feeling? I invite you to listen and to find your own answers.
Even if we don't see it a lot in the business world, people still matter and call me crazy. I tend to have like this internal almost ranking where I'm like, okay, if you're in the midst of your career and you really struggle to be successful, and success is really, 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 really important. Even if you don't admit it, maybe even more important than your family. Definitely more important than your well-being. Even if you would not admit it. And that's a hard message to digest. But once, and I've seen it in enough number of executives that for me it's a relevant thing to say. Then there comes, in the mid to end 40s, beginning 50s, there, in the best case, there is like an internal shift where I realize how this game, quote unquote, is being played and what is really important. And it is people. And then you see the difference in the companies being run by executives who have realized that and have realized that within themselves. They start making themselves vulnerable. They start making themselves approachable. They start discovering this internal space. And then they are shifting the culture. And those companies tend to be really successful. It is, I have to admit, it is maybe more difficult for executives in companies who have shareholders, who are listed at the stock exchange, because the pressure is just really enormous, and a lot of people still think that that they can only deal with the pressure when they're shutting themselves off. So that is one way to deal with the stress, really, that I shut myself off. And I just don't think it's a good strategy. But yes, it is a valuable strategy when I don't have any other. So that I shut myself off. I flee my own emotions so that I can fight.
Where do you think the idea of being a professional is gonna go? Maybe in 10 years from now, we see a lot of people more and more working virtually, and things get done virtually. You don't need to go in an office anymore. I think what's happening, it's just my observation, the human factor you've been talking about. I have the feeling that people will understand more and more that people do matter. I've been reading a lot of articles speaking of family, speaking of what truly makes you human, and it's not working 24 hours a day. I'm overreacting, 20. But it's really that balance of being professional in the sense of having your profession and also caring for your family, doing the things you love, and so on. And I've been reading some articles like the 4-hour week, and people who somehow they manage to make a difference, but not being so caught up, not investing so much time in so to speak, being a professional on the spot. What, as a specialist, where do you think professionalism is gonna go maybe in 10 years from now? especially with the young people coming, and they will have a different definition of being professional.
Oh, I definitely believe that they have a different definition. So working long hours doesn't seem to be the issue anymore. I mean, when I started working with Accenture, being professional meant staying in the office until 10 p.m. and being there again the next day at 7 a.m.
So things have been changing. That's what I've noticed, and it doesn't mean that you're less efficient. Actually, from what I read, studies are showing that if you focus for 4 or 5 hours a day and you work and you give your all, you're actually more productive than sitting in front of a desk for 10 hours, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm totally with you. The studies are all out there, and we could know that that's the case, and yet companies are really slow to change, and FaceTime is still valuable, that people put in the hours because this is what is expected. So they're like in our brains, we are slow to change, really. So in our brains is still like this image from almost like 100 years ago that you're only a professional when you put in the hours, when it's really hard, when you work hard. I mean, professionally, I grew up with work hard, party hard. And my parents grew up with work hard. And now I think it's like living hard or just live. Do whatever you like to do and find your niche. And you can be really productive sitting on the beach and do your work and have a phone conference with your team, sipping a pina colada next to you. It doesn't define your professionality anymore. It's your creativity. I still would say, but maybe that's me, it's reliability, and that I can connect with people, that we together can create, just can co-create something that hasn't been there yet in a good way.
We were talking in blogs that you wrote. We were talking about work-life balance, and for me, it all seems to come down to balance. What I noticed, though, is what I was trying to say before. For some reason, nobody's teaching you that. Nobody's teaching you in school that, okay, it's like we are trained to practice a profession, but not what it means to be a professional, if that makes sense. It's like the school or the education is giving you the skills, but that's it. It's only the skills. Everything else is like you have to figure it out on your own. And I almost feel like even in schools, they should teach young people what it means to be a professional, because this is what we're going to be for the rest of our lives, pretty much. And there are a lot of people who, like you say, get in their 50s or 60s and still don't know that there are other ways, so to speak, or still don't understand what balance is.
Well, I think yes and no. I think schools do teach you, in high school, and there are a lot of coaches out there, they teach you their interpretation of professional, meaning keeping the appearance, pushing your emotions down. So this is still being taught, and there are coaches out there who actually earn their money doing this, to teach you to keep an appearance. And what it comes down to is we are not learning how to be a human being and to be ourselves and be compassionate with others. And I'm not, when I say compassionate, I don't mean those fluffy, rosa-red, esoteric, whatever kind of thing. I mean being able to feel what I feel and being able to manage myself in this. And by managing, I don't mean to push my emotions down, but to be able to balance myself again, that I can handle myself in a good way so that I don't need to cut myself off from emotions. And I'm not talking, I mean, that there are situations where it's healthy to cut yourself off, when you get traumatized. I'm not talking about that. It's just the normal being with you as a human being, and we don't learn to be with ourselves as human beings. We just don't learn that. And that starts with the parents. So that when a child cries, a lot of times it's still, when that's a boy, it's still the message, well, boys don't cry. And when it's a girl, it's, oh, you are so sensitive. And then you get primed for the rest of your life. Instead of, because parents haven't learned it. And so they're not really able to support, or a lot of parents haven't learned it. And then they're not as good in supporting their children and say, oh, I see and I feel that you're sad now. Okay, so there is sadness in you, and you can express it and be there as long as the sadness takes to pass through your system. And that's really all it is. Emotions come and go. They pass through, and we have not learned the capacity to let emotions pass through our system. We're clinging to them, and we need to express them, and then we need others to help us deal with them. And then that's for me what I mean with growth, that we grow as human beings, that we learn to be humans.
And maybe that's another discussion we should have about the negative connotation of being sensitive.
Oh, totally. Yes. It's a negative connotations of emotion, sensitivity, vulnerability. Oh, the whole lot.
Like for women, is you're too sensitive. For guys, you shouldn't be sensitive. So I think it's messy there. It's really messy when it comes to feelings and genders and all that. But that's for another discussion. Thank you so much, Madhu. And I'm looking forward to our next podcast. So thank you again. Thank you for listening to the last episode of Improvisations on Growth with Madhu Einsiedler, dedicated to the topic of being professional. I hope you have constructed your own answers and reached valuable conclusions that can help you in your professional life. Don't forget to share your feedback and breakthroughs with Madhu and email her at madhu@einsiedler.at or reach out on her social media. Until our next series, remember that being a great professional doesn't exclude being a great human.